would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name is Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome to Monday and Labor Day, everyone. Appreciate you taking the time out to make this show a part of your day. Nothing is more valuable than your time, and I absolutely appreciate you spending some of it with me. I hope it's a good payoff for you this morning, or this afternoon, whenever you happen to be listening to the show. If you'd like to get in contact with me, the best way to do that is through the website at www.therebelbroker.com. From there, you can click on Contact the Rebel Broker in the menu items available there and send along any ideas, observations, suggestions, or questions that you might have. And of course, I will be happy to reply. Finally, if you'd like to help the show a little bit, head on to that button at the very tippy top of the page. Take the survey to help the show. It's a quick demographic survey for the audience and would profoundly help me move the show forward. So if you could take a minute out to do that, I'd appreciate it. We're going to talk a little bit about the top 10 cities with affordable housing. Primarily as a way maybe for you to pick an area to initiate your searches for potential investment properties. But what's also interesting about this is that according to the folks at Redfin, this is also neighborhoods where these are heading away from affordability. So in other words, you're at a point right now where there's a higher level of affordability and a higher probability of heading into less affordability as we move forward. And that spells a good thing, right? You always want to buy before it reaches its peak. So hopefully there'll be some good tips here. I kind of disagree with one of their cities, and it might just be my bias showing, but we can talk about that when we get to it. One other thing I wanted to cover before we jumped into all of that wonderful discussion, though, was I had someone reach out to me and given the call, as I just did, for folks to be filling out the survey for demographic information and the fact that the show now for a few weeks has been sporting a place for a commercial at the middle. I've had a couple of folks ask, well, where am I taking the show? What am I going to be doing with the show? What's my goal? So that's appropriate, I guess, to talk about goals because we've actually reached what was a big goal for me, and that was to have the show reach the point where it was getting 20,000 downloads per month or more. And I am very happy to announce. I don't think I announced this when it actually happened. I may have mentioned it in passing because it was a major milestone for the show. That was achieved in August. In fact, it was achieved in August with over 5 days left in the month. So, and that of course only happens because of you folks, and it's all about you providing feedback and generating buzz out in the world about the show that increases the number of folks who listen to the show. And 20,000 seemed to be a nice magical number at a point in which advertisers are more drawn to potentially supporting the show or potentially participating with the show. And of course, I've also mentioned earlier that I'm not going to just take a hands-off approach to any advertising that appears on the show simply because I'm not interested in giving the implication that I endorse something unless I really know something about it. So I'm going to be judicious about how I have any advertisements appearing on my show. But I've had folks say, well, where are you going with it? I mean, is this strictly just a way for you to make more money? I mean, what are you going to do? Well, and I guess the honest answer is, yeah, it kind of is. It's really a way for me to allocate more time per day to the show and things associated with it. So long-term, my goal is to have 50% of my work hours be dedicated to the show. As it is right now, I am lucky if I can put in, obviously there's sort of the daily stockpiling of articles that are interesting and the filtering of news items that I do sort of on a daily basis. But what I'd like to make happen here is to create a far more planned out system for how the show gets created. Right now, I'll sit down, I'll figure out what topics I want to talk about. Sometimes I'll highlight different articles maybe earlier in the week, and then before I sit down and do the show, I'll give it a little analysis, I'll read through it, and then try to share with you my thoughts and try to give you information that you can, if not just think about when the show's over, actually take actions based on it, whether or not that is about places to focus some attention for you to decide whether or not it's a good investment opportunity for you or not. And that's all fine. I mean, it allows us an opportunity to talk about current news, trends, weird things relating to what maybe political stuff that might be influencing real estate, and also what different economic things are playing into it. And it's a way for us to sort of spitball different ideas about where real estate's going. And that's all fine. But in a world where the show is a bigger central part of my daily routine, in other words, where I'm spending 50% or more of my time on the show, we would be able to accommodate things like interviews. We'd be able to complement it with additional content, downloadable stuff, that kind of thing. So I'm interested in taking the show in a direction that gives you more input from different voices that have something interesting to say about real estate and different sort of opportunities that might exist out there for you. Not focusing on an advertising thing where someone's pushing a product, but really just the same kind of advice I give you, but with the perspective from someone else. Maybe have different regions of the country and where we interview folks who are experts in those areas. I'd love to talk to folks who are experts in Phoenix or experts in Miami or experts in Las Vegas who are hardcore into the real estate markets there, and do interviews with them and present them here on the show for you so that we could cover all the different aspects of the country and let folks have a voice who are in those areas, and we could have a nice in-depth discussion with those people about what's going on in those different marketplaces. The other thing is adding a video element to the show and showing you how I do different things relating to investing. I've already promised that I'm going to crank out a video on the tool that I use to analyze properties. I absolutely am planning on doing that. It's really just a question of finding the time. And once the show gets on a paying basis, well, it's paying for the time for me to do that, because until I've got a show that's generating some revenue, I'm having to generate my revenue elsewhere, right? So that's kind of it. The goal here is for me to write more content for the show. Also, I'd love to point out also that the folks who have gone to therebelbroker.com and who have gone to the trouble of signing up for the newsletter. Now, there's a little pop-up that comes up when you first visit the site, and most of you have probably noticed you've received nothing, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, as promised, I don't sell your information to anybody, so I'm never going to, in any way, shape, or form, hand over your information to somebody else and be paid for that. My goal is to simply use that as another avenue to give you exclusive content that's going to only be available to the folks who are subscribing to the newsletter. I'm working on the idea of a segment that I'm calling Behind the Microphone that gives you a little bit more details about some of the things that we cover in the shows, that also covers maybe expanding on those subjects in a newsletter format. So there's definitely things on the menu of cool stuff that I'd like to add in terms of being able to give you more information, provide more value, give you more things that you can use as tools in your toolbox. Whether you're someone who's just really kind of interested in analyzing real estate, or you're fascinated by the process, however, whatever direction of interest you have relating to real estate, I want to try and provide as many supports for that as possible, with as many different ways for you to consume information and go into as much depth as you want. So maybe you're just consuming the show via podcast, and that's fantastic. Maybe you want a deeper view, so you want to go take a look perhaps at a complimentary video that I've done that shows you more information, or maybe you want to subscribe to the newsletter and get a little bit of behind the scenes information there. So that's sort of the direction it's going. I like the idea of doing interviews, and I'd love to have a kind of standardized process set up where we're doing a couple of interviews per week, and focus and perhaps change the focus to different segments of the country so that we're getting some specific stuff. Because I realize every time I talk to you, I usually have to start it with, here's some data relating to this place. But remember, I'm a California real estate agent. I know what the rules are here, but I have no idea what they might be in Maryland or New York or these other states, particularly different states where real estate agents aren't even really a thing. It tends to be real estate lawyers that are involved in the process. So it'd be fantastic to have those kinds of folks on the show. Other folks, I get offers a lot from folks to do interviews on here, and some of them are trying to sell something. Some of them have written a book. Some of them have done other things. So I usually insist that I get access to what they're trying to sell, just so I can preview it first and see if it makes sense for this audience. But as you've heard, if you've been a listener to the show, it hasn't really happened that much. I think we've really I can't even remember the last interview that we did, but I'd love to start doing them more. It's just a question of scheduling time to do it and having the time to do it, and getting the show on more of a paying basis will facilitate that sort of thing. So that's the direction I'm going, just so that everyone's aware of what my long-term plans are. And once we reached that 20,000 download, we actually blew the doors off. It actually, in August, I think it went to something like 22 or 23,000 in that month once the month was over. So you guys have been fantastic, and you're actually absolutely helping the show grow. We're not even to the 1-year anniversary yet. I think we're at least the 1-year anniversary of the new format. I switched to doing the show Mondays through Fridays not quite a year ago. It'll be on September 11th, I believe, is the anniversary of the show switching to that format. Prior to that, I was doing a live show once a week for 3 hours at a go. And I was doing that on Blog Talk Radio. And prior to that, I was again doing pre-recorded from 2007 until about 2011 or 12, doing it just where you just posted it up, and it was a little bit more like this, but on a less grand scale. So that's a little history of the show for you. But in any event, I just wanted to make sure to share with you, since there was some interest in what the long-term plans were and why I was making some changes that I've been making. And that's really it. It's really just to facilitate an ability to enhance the show from a whole lot of different angles. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break here for a second, and then we'll jump into the topic of the 10 cities with the most affordable housing. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner-broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to go ahead and jump into it now and talk about the top 10 cities with affordable housing. These are good places for you to potentially start off your search for your first investment property. Or if you're a seasoned investor, it might be worth your time to turn your gaze towards one of these communities and see if it makes sense for you. Now, to start off, the article gives us sort of the lowdown. Quote, across 40 large cities in the United States, about 55% were considered affordable and were large enough to house working-class families with their 2 to 4 bedrooms, according to a new study by Redfin, an online real estate brokerage. In fact, in 25 of those cities, over 50% of the homes were affordable for working-class families and between 2 to 4 bedrooms, the study showed. We'll get down to what the most affordable one was. But that being said, it's, quote, most affordable inventory is falling, creating a more competitive market. So that's the idea here. We're trying to kind of zoom in on these communities where the market is increasingly becoming more competitive so that we can maybe jump in on that trend before it reaches its peak. Okay. Quote, neighborhoods with a healthy mix of incomes and home types cover just 13% of our cities. The solution is a mix of inventory with homes for people of all incomes, even in the same neighborhood. It's all about more than just affordability. We found that when people have various incomes live in the same neighborhood, everyone benefits. And sort of based on their criteria, here's what we get. Now, number 10 on their list is Jacksonville, Florida. Now, Jacksonville, Florida, according to them, has 71% of inventory is on the affordable side on a working class household income. And that includes homes with between 2 and 4 bedrooms as of July. It had a 15% decrease in affordable housing since the beginning of 2014. The average income for a working class family was $52,500, and the median home price was $237,457. Now, if we take a look at some of the market data for Jacksonville, Florida, as presented by Trulia.com, it looks like it's a pretty good opportunity. Now, it puts the median sales price as $160,000. Now, remember, median price and average price are different. Median price simply is the price at which half of the homes that sold were above that price and half of the homes that sold were below that price. But they also show the median rent at $1,175. And when you look at Jacksonville, Florida, you see that there's a lot of interesting opportunities because it's a coastal town, right? Because they've got a lot of coast on the East Coast, but they also have the river that kind of comes right up the center of Jacksonville and presents plenty of opportunities for getting a property that potentially takes advantage of why folks would want to live there in terms of the St. Johns River coming right up through and going to Mill Cove and then heading out to the Atlantic. I see plenty of prices here this is me totally just eyeballing Jacksonville, Florida. I've driven through the town. I don't have a lot of insights into the home markets there, so I don't know what ends of town or sides of town are the quote unquote better places to be. But typically, if you're somewhere near the shore, that's typically a better place to be in most locations. And I still see relatively reasonable prices, even in areas that are right there on the water or very near the water. So a lot of interesting opportunities there in terms of acquisition costs, which appear to be relatively low. And if you look at the trends, it's kind of interesting. It's absolutely kind of flattened out and dipped just a little bit here in September in terms of median sales price. Median rent has done kind of the same thing, but we're sort of at a peak. And it looks to me like the sales prices have dipped more than rent prices have. So we're sort of in an interesting position. I think that this could present some interesting opportunities. You definitely want to go and get a little bit more real life on the ground information, I think, in terms of the ground truth, what acquisition cost versus rent, and try to decide whether or not it makes more sense to do a buy and hold with a rental strategy in place or a rent or a buy and a flip. Let's see. There's some other interesting data here on Jacksonville, Florida that you can check out for yourself over on Trulia if you feel like heading over there. Next on our list is number 9, Minneapolis, Minnesota, with 74% affordable inventory and an 11% increase in inventory from 2014. The average income for a working class family was $68,500 and the median home price was $298,900. Now, when we take a look at Minneapolis on Trulia, they're reporting the median sales price at $237,000 with a median rent per month of $1,550. Median sales price is an interesting number to track. It bottomed out at about $210,000 in April of this year, and now it topped out at what looks like $240,000 in July, and is now down to $236,500. Which is interesting to note. It started the year at about 227. So we've had sort of this, over the last 12 months, sort of a range of everything from 210 up to 240 in terms of fluctuation in median sales price. And median rent hasn't actually moved that much. It's really only moved by a maximum. I mean, the lowest point was in February at $1,395. And now we're at a relatively high point of $1,550, but not a huge amount of fluctuation. I'm seeing about $150 worth of fluctuation over the course of the last year, with us being at the high point for the year now, with just a little bit of decline now, but more decline in the median sales price than in rent. So again, another trend where rents aren't keeping up with potential declines, at least in this marketplace, in terms of what acquisition cost might be. If we look at the next area on our list, number 8 is Arlington, Texas. 74% affordable inventory and a 13% decrease in inventory from 2014. The average income for a working class family was $59,500, and according to Redfin, the median home price was $259,950. If we compare that to what Trulia has to say about Arlington, they're showing the average listing price. Now remember, we got to point out that discrepancy. Median home price, as reported by Redfin, was $259,950. the average list price, which is reported by Trulia, those are two different things, right? They're giving us an average of the list price versus an average of what the home's actually sold for. So what you would probably actually pay is most likely, I'm not sure how tough the market is right now in Arlington. I'm guessing it's not ridiculously crazy, so that you might actually pay a little bit less than what list price is. But they're also showing median rent per month of $1,450, which is respectable. If we take a look at, let's see here, the housing market. Let me just see what we got. Median rent. Here we go. Median rent of $1,450, with about $100 in fluctuation over the last 12 months. Number of rentals has gone through the roof, with 591. That's the peak for over the last 12 months. Actually, further back than the last 12. Over the last 12 months. Let's see what they've got in terms of active listings here. I know we didn't do this on the other ones, but this is kind of an interesting anomaly here. I want to see how much flexibility we have. So I'm seeing quite a bit of different home prices listed here. If we get more into downtown Arlington, I'm seeing a 3-bed, 1 full bath for $102. I'm seeing a 4-bed, 3-bath for $175. 3-bed, 1 bath for $91,000, 3-bed, 2-bath for $111,000 that are really only about 5 or 6 blocks away from each other. Another 2-bedroom, 1 full bath for $152. And I continue to suggest, and I don't think incorrectly, that if you're looking for an opportunity in one of these communities, and one consistency that I think you'll always see, and you can verify this for yourself in really any community that you look at, man, have that second bathroom. And even if it's not a second full bath, as long as it's 1 full bath and a half, if these areas are anything like the areas that I deal with, it is a big pain in the butt to add a second bathroom. It is, and for us, it's about counting toilets. Right? So even a half bath has a toilet. It is going to be far easier to add a bath, meaning a bathtub or a shower, to a half bath, turning it into a full bath, than it's going to be to build a whole new bathroom from scratch. At least here it is. In some parts of Silicon Valley, it is ridiculous. And when it comes to upgrades that you're making to a property, going to the process of actually getting approval to build an entire second bathroom can kick in all kinds of complications that are also going to likely make you have to comply with different new building standards that may have you suddenly having to do all kinds of renovations to the home that have nothing to do with the bathroom. You have to bring it up to code in a lot of different areas that you might not have planned to. However, if you've already got that second bathroom or that half bathroom, adding a bathtub to it is far less complicated. If you're not adding a toilet around here, it's far less complicated. Now, I don't know how true that is in other areas, but for my money, even from the standpoint of just the costs involved in of making that, because look at the price difference we talked about here. We have this 3-bedroom, 2 full bath for $111,382 in Arlington, and then we have a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, literally just a few blocks away, $91,000. So that's a pretty good chunk of change difference between those two properties. We're really talking $20,000, and adding a shower or a bathtub to a bathroom is not going to cost you $20,000. It's not going to cost you half of $20,000. So the idea of really eking out the best advantage. So, and you can do one of two things. If you can't get yourself in a position where you can negotiate down that 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath or 2-bath unit to a place that you think makes the numbers work for you, then go for these less desirable 3-bedroom, 1.5 baths. Because here's the thing. Nobody who's buying a 3-bedroom because they have kids wants that second bedroom to be a half bath. Nobody does. Particularly if we're talking kids that have broken into the teenage range, where every time they're supposed to take a bath, they're supposed to go into the master bedroom. Come on, the utility of that is through the floor. So I know I had someone call me and was talking about an investment they'd made in a something with one bath, and I am even with just a 2-bedroom, I'm against a 1-bath. I think and prices bear it out, resale value bears it out, and just plain old utility bears it out. So always be thinking that. I mean, and there's no problem with buying a 2-bedroom, 1-bath if you have a solid plan to put that second bathroom in there. And you're going to do that, particularly if it's going to be an investment property for you. Okay, we spent enough time on Arlington. I apologize. Next on our list at number 7 is Kansas City. Kansas City has 80% affordable inventory and an 8% decrease in inventory from 2014. The average income for a working class family was $57,500, and the median home price was $237,700. Number 6 on our list is Philadelphia, with 82% affordable inventory and a 6% decrease in inventory since 2014. The average income for a working class family was $62,500, and the median home price was $202,000. So that's pretty reasonable. And I tell you what, I'm not sure what to think about Philadelphia. I've been to Philadelphia a couple of times. I had the scariest cab ride of my life in Philadelphia, and I flew there once in the early 90s. And was surprised by how many smokestacks surrounded the city. I hear great things from some people about it, and I hear horrible things. So I have kind of a visceral reaction, I guess, to Philly. I think of it as kind of a dirty, polluted city with a lot of people who are angry about something and want to share their anger with you. But I could be completely wrong, because these initial numbers, they kind of sound good to me. If we were to go ahead and just run the numbers on Philadelphia, the numbers look pretty good. If we go ahead and look at Trulia, it's $168,000 is the median sales price for Philadelphia. Median rent per month is $1,300. That sounds pretty good to me. And in terms of the ratio of price to rent, that also sounds kind of interesting to me. If we look at the stats on this, median sales price has actually remained relatively flat, with one bizarre blip at the end of July of this year, which kind of makes me wonder if there just wasn't some crazy big real estate transaction that took place during that time. Or that could have been their season, because I'll tell you, it really just kind of dribbles down around 140, 130, 120, 159, 145. Just keeps doing that, then makes this crazy jump up to 447 and 448.5 for what looked like a couple of weeks. And then right back down to 147, and right now hovering at 168 as the median sales price. Number of sales actually dropped. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So the number of sales that they have in Trulia for that period of time when it jumped through the roof was because the sample size was too small, which looks to me like a data glitch. So for all intents and purposes, it's been flat completely, going all the way back to July of 2011. And if we just look at the number of sales and ignore that crazy down patch where it was one property that sold and two properties that sold, and then suddenly jumped up to 635 properties, and 1,900 properties. It actually kind of shows that the number of sales has gone down a little bit. It was at 2,095 total sales for the most recent numbers reported, which is relatively low compared to some of the other numbers I'm seeing here overall. And I would guess, given because of what we've seen over the most recent time period in terms of what's been going on with prices, that's more of an indication of being a inventory issue rather than any kind of a drop in demand, because prices have actually tended to go up at the same time. Let's see here. So Philly looks kind of interesting to me. And again, it's another one of those cities that's got a university or two. So I'm always a big fan of that. But I'll be honest with you. Whenever I get to talking to folks who live in these areas, and I actually had someone who called me to help them find a real estate agent, and they lived south of Washington, D.C. There are so many weird little elements to East Coast real estate transactions that are different from what I'm used to. Having someone with a lot of good ground truth in these areas in their minds is going to be an invaluable resource for you in terms of really figuring out where the places to go are. Now, of course, your online tools are going to be great in terms of being able to get an idea of what different sections are good. So if I go to, Trulia's got a great one because you can hover over their map and see different zip codes and see the change in prices. So in North Philadelphia, for instance, you can see that there's areas where the listing price is either going down or it's going up, what direction it's going. So the 19140 area is relatively low at $45,000 for a median list price. 19132 is even lower at $36,000. But then you get to some of these other areas where it's $175,000 is another sort of North Philly area, 19122 zip code. And then when you get into what looks like more downtown, you're seeing median list price of $389 in 19107. So you can take a look, figure out what these things are. It looks like the most high end real estate is happening in sort of the well, what is that area? Is there a name associated with it? It looks like sort of the downtown area where 592 appears to be the average price. So again, look at that ground truth. I like the rental rates I'm seeing versus the acquisition price. So it could be a good opportunity for someone who's interested in jumping into the market right there in Philly. All right, number 5, Memphis, Tennessee. I got a soft spot for Memphis. Here it is again. Remember how many different times Memphis has come up on our radar. It came up about 4 months ago in terms of highest return on investment. We had that whole chat about if you've got $1 million worth of real estate in San Francisco, or you've just bought $1 million worth of real estate and you're making 4%, 5%, 6% on that money, sell it and buy $1 million worth of real estate in Memphis and make more like 10. We've talked about a lot of different elements relating to Memphis, and Memphis seems to pop up pretty frequently on different research documents indicating good payoffs in terms of investments. I know my personal focus is usually the buy and hold strategy where you're renting, and those numbers have always looked good. And that's one reason why Memphis has sort of stayed on my radar. Now, according to this, 83% with 83% affordable inventory, 5% decrease in inventory from 2014. The average income for a working class family was $47,500, and the median home price was $136,000. So I'm bullish on Memphis. What can I say? Never been. I'd love to go to Memphis and check it out, but I think it represents a great opportunity for folks who potentially want to go and do it. And I would love to carve some time out. I'd love to go and dedicate a couple of shows. I'd love to go and stay in Memphis for a few days, do a couple of shows on the market, take a look at some properties, and just get the ground truth and be able to report that back to you. See, that'd be something else that'd be great to do, right? As a regular show thing, maybe once per quarter, actually go to a different city that sounds like it's got good investments, go through it, talk to some folks who do business there on a day-to-day basis, and share that information with you. That would be an awesome thing that I'd love to do on the show regularly. And I've done it a couple of times over the last, next year it'll be 10 years. I've done it, I think, for Denver. I've done it for Austin. And I think I did it no, I didn't do it for that one. But I've done it several times and just sort of done a show on the road. But these are now years ago, so I don't even think that they're still available online. Next on our list at number 4, Columbus, Ohio, another one that's shown up on our list previously with different good reasons why you'd want to invest there. 84% affordable inventory, 9% decrease in inventory from 2014. The average income for a working class family was $55,500, and the median home price was $176,200. Number 3, Baltimore, Maryland, another one that's been on our list before in terms of good statistics relating to investment opportunity. 90% affordable inventory and a 4% decrease in inventory from 2014. The average income for a working class family is $70,500, and the median home price was $170,500. Number 2 on our list, Cleveland, Ohio, with 92% affordable inventory, 1% increase in inventory from 2014. Average income for a working class family was $49,500, and median home price $85,000. And that just absolutely makes me want to look up what rental rates are in that town. And again, using Trulia as a source here, jumping in, kind of going right down to Cleveland. And again, it's another one of those cities that has a shoreline to it. I'm always drawn to trying to stay as close to the shoreline as possible. I'm just because you can't make more shoreline. It's got a rarity to it that I think probably draws a lot of folks, and I'm not sure how much that plays here in the marketplace in Cleveland. But what I'm seeing is a 4-bedroom, 1 full bath, 2,400 square foot home renting for $1,275 in the part of town called Edgewater. Then, right in downtown, I'm seeing a 2-bedroom, 2 full bath, 1,191 square feet, renting for $2,500. So, very interesting to note the difference there. Huge difference in square footage and what it's offering. But this being downtown plays into this huge. If we look at another one, 2-bedroom, 1 full bath, 1,200 square foot, $1,875, and that is off Detroit Avenue, near, I don't know where that is. It's south of the river, I guess, what people in Cleveland would say, just south of the river. Lots of variety here, and you're going to want to look at the differences. Here's a $900 rental in Detroit Shoreway, $900, 2 bedrooms, 1 full bath, almost just diagonal across a few streets, 2 bedroom, 1 full bath, $1,200. So again, the ground truth is going to depend, right? You can just go over a few streets and see a huge difference in the rental market. But I'll tell you, if the cost of acquisition is what we think it is, and let's go ahead and switch over to that real quick and just look at buying homes for sale in Cleveland and try to look at ones in the same general area. It sounds to me like these are areas where you could very well acquire something and be positive cash flow without a whole lot of effort. Yeah, see, in the same general area, I'm seeing a 2-bedroom, 2 full bath, $265,000. Here's a 1-bedroom, 1 full bath condo for $134,000, which I would not buy. Here's another 1-bedroom, 1 full bath for $132,000. Let's see, more here. This can't be right. 9 bedrooms and 3 full baths, $79,900, multifamily home. That screams subdivide me, or not subdivide me, but break me up into smaller rooms if that's allowed in the city. Lots of opportunities here. 4-bedroom, 2 bath, $184,900. Just off the top of my head, just throwing these out, the math sure would seem to be pretty good on a lot of these properties in terms of making these into rentals. So you'd want to get a little bit more ground truth there, but I think that would be awesome. And then number 1 on the list, and again, this is my bias, I think, but Detroit is number 1 on their list. 97% affordable inventory, 1% increase in inventory from 2014. The average income from working class family was $52,500, and the median home price was $41,500. So, and talk about the necessity to get ground truth. This is one of those cities where I would really need to know what's going on. What's the exit strategy for Detroit to get out of the doldrums that it's currently in, and how successful do we think it's going to be? If someone's got a lot of passion for Detroit, it absolutely, you can go in there and you can acquire something for an amazing price. But the goal is to make it pay for itself. So you'd need to know the proper places to buy. You'd need to know what the plan is for the city, and you'd need to have complete buy-in on the idea that this city is going to be rejuvenated and not have a lot of the problems that it's had over the last, for quite a while, actually, since the downturn of the automotive industry. Does that mean I would completely poo-poo it? No. I absolutely get a avoid it vibe just in reaction to Detroit. And that's predominantly from just some of the news I read. But given the numbers in terms of affordability, the fact that it has a little bit of an increase in inventory, all these other places had decreases, right? In other words, the inventory was down. It would be interesting to see what's going on with Detroit in terms of average prices. What direction are those going? So this would be, if I was deciding, okay, I'm going to give Detroit a serious look in terms of it being an investment opportunity. What would I want to do? I'd want to try to identify the places with the greatest amount of potential growth. Now, if we look at what Trulia has to say about Detroit, they put the median sales price at $40,500. And in terms of affordability, that's pretty awesome. The median rent per month they have down is $750 per month. So it's tough to pick what you want to do now. And the other things that I'm seeing in terms of median sales price in Detroit is ridiculously down. over the last year. Ridiculous in terms of just the direction it's going. So it peaked out at about 45,000 back in December, and it's sitting at about 40,000 now. The lowest it's been is 39.5. So you're not talking about an area where median sales prices have been showing a trend of increase. But in recent months, they've kind of taken a little bit of a peak. I mean, it's up from August. August to September saw a $500 increase. In terms of median rent per month, you've got this interesting blip of $25 from April to August, which I guess kind of makes sense in terms of demand, as that's when most people are trying to move. In terms of acquisition, in terms of what do we want to look at about what it costs to buy in these areas, again, you'd want to try to figure out what your predominant interest is. There's a variety of areas where they color code this stuff in terms of prices, and what you tend to see is that the higher priced neighborhoods tend to be out of the downtown Detroit area. I'm seeing a 4-bedroom, 2-bath for $34,900 over at Point Park. In Midtown, I'm seeing a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $125,000. In, I don't know where this is, Hamtramck? What is that? I don't know. Let me zoom in a little more here. Hamtramck, that's what it says. North End, $155,000 for a 5-bedroom, 4-bath. You just really need to figure out what's going on, where are the trends of improvement. But there's all kinds of different opportunities here at bunches of different price points, ranging from $15,000 for a 2-bedroom to, let's see, to the $155,000 one we talked about. Here's a $160,000 home. That doesn't look like a home. The photo shows a car wash. Here's a $99,000 home. So is there potentially a lot of opportunity here? But yeah, you're going to have to be a very discerning investor. I think you need to be super sharp. And you need to decide if this is a market where things are on the upswing or in decline. And you need to pick the submarket that makes the most sense. And I know I've said this one before about Detroit, but it still rings true. You need to get ground truth, and I'd suggest multiple sources on something like that, just because I think it represents a much higher level of risk, and I think that potentially it means much more risk, particularly to a newer investor who maybe would be better off approaching a place like this with a little bit more mileage, having gone through a little bit more in terms of gaining more experience. So I hope that helps. There's so many different ways to look at this. There's a few on this list that obviously jumped out at me that hopefully will spark some interest on your part. So feel free to take this list and run with it. I do appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to the show. I realize how valuable your time is, and I am truly appreciative of the fact that you spend some of that with me. As always, thanks for listening, folks. I'll talk to you all next time.